Many times throughout the history of Narnia, the battlefield served as ground zero for the fate of the entire world. In every epic battle, the actual course of Narnian history hung in the balance between the forces of good and evil. Over the course of thousands of years, Narnia as we know it has been shaped by the outcome of several key battles, with the fate of entire civilizations resting on the swords of heroes and villains alike. Today, we'll explore the most important battles in Narnia's long and tumultuous history and discuss their significance in the fate of the world as we know it. But before we do, I want to take a moment, as always, and thank all the supporters of this channel on Patreon. We had a fantastic members-only live stream recently, and it was a great time to talk about all things Narnia, play some trivia, and even have some giveaways. If you'd like to join us next time or just support this channel, check out our Patreon in the link in the description below. Now, there's a lot to cover today, so let's get started. It's time to leave the Shadowlands behind and step into a world that's more real than our own. It's time to follow me into the wardrobe. It's no secret that Narnia is a world that has been marked by its share of epic battles. But some might say that the first battle to ever make its mark on Narnian history didn't even happen in Narnia at all. In fact, it happened in a completely different universe, long before Narnia was even created. Number 1. The Last Battle of Charn. This battle, also known as the Last Great Battle of Charn, was the final conflict in a global war between Jadis and her sister, who led a rebellion to seize control of the Charnian Empire. Now, the actual battle lasted for 3 days in the streets of the capital city, where the great river of Charn actually ran red with blood until Jadis was the last one left standing to fight the rebel army. In a manic act of pure desperation, she unleashed one final and ultimate weapon, the deplorable word. In an instant, this doomsday spell destroyed all other life on the planet, and Jadis, left with no empire to rule, cast herself in a state of suspended animation, awaiting the day that someone would awaken her and lead her to another world waiting to be conquered. Even though this battle happened in another universe, its impact on Narnia can't be overstated. If Jadis had won the last great battle of Charn earlier, she never would have come to Narnia in the first place, because she would have no reason to leave her mighty empire. But Jadis did enter Narnia, and her arrival marked the entrance of evil into a new and perfect world and set the stage for the next great battle that would happen 1,000 years later. Number 2. The First Narnian Invasion. For 9 centuries, the Tree of Protection provided a magical defense around the perimeter of Narnia, preventing Jadis from entering the nation or mounting attacks on the country. However, in NT 900, the Tree of Protection died. Jadis, who had presumably been assembling forces for quite some time, led her army across the borders of Narnia and waged battle against the Narnian army in the first successful invasion in Narnia's history. However, it wouldn't be the last. Now, the result of this invasion would change the face of Narnia forever. On a global level, Narnia became isolated from the surrounding nations, who were fearful of this powerful new ruler of Narnia. Within Narnia's borders, the population became decimated after being severely strained by the toll of war and economic and ecological impact of Jadis' eternal winter curse. As a result, much of the history and old ways of Narnia were lost, and it seemed that even old Narnia itself was lost. That is, until a glimmer of hope appeared in the form of 4 sons of Adam and daughters of Eve. Number 3. The First Battle of Baruna. The First Battle of Baruna was a pivotal moment in Narnian history as the deciding battle in the Narnian Revolution, taking place in NT 1000. The battle was fought between the army of Jadis and the Narnian army led by Peter Pevensey in the name of Aslan. The battle took place on a field outside the ancient city of Baruna, with the witches' army vastly outnumbering Aslan's forces. But despite the odds, Aslan's army fought bravely, aided by the intervention of the 4 Pevensey children who had been prophesied to play a key role in Narnia's liberation. The outcome of the battle was a decisive victory for Aslan's forces, resulting in the witch's death, who was killed by Aslan himself. The significance of the Battle of Baruna in Narnian history also cannot be overstated. First, it marked the end of Jadis' century-long reign of terror, which had caused untold suffering and misery for the Narnian populace. Secondly, it established the Pevensey children as legendary kings and queens who played a pivotal role in freeing Narnia from the witch's curse. And thirdly, it helped re-establish the reputation of Aslan as a powerful and benevolent ruler who had even been willing to sacrifice himself for the freedom of his people. Number 4, the Battle of Anvar. The Battle of Anvar was another pivotal moment during the Golden Age of Narnia in NT 1014. The Calormen army, led by Prince Rabadash, sought to mount a large-scale series of invasions on the kingdoms to the north. After discovering Rabadash's plans, Lucy and Edmund, the Narnians and their allies, rallied to defend their kingdom, meeting the Calormens outside the walls of the Archenland capital in a fierce confrontation. The battle was long and grueling with heavy casualties on both sides, but ultimately, the Narnians emerged victorious. The Battle of Anvar was significant because in the few years following Narnia's liberation from the White Witch, it cemented Narnia's geopolitical reputation as a formidable force for good in the world, ruled by kings and queens that were willing to fight for what is right and defend their people against foreign invasion. Needless to say, this stunning victory brought peace and security to Narnian borders for many years in the future. Number 5, the Telmarine Invasion. In the Narnian year 1998, the Telmarine army, commanded by Caspian I, invaded Narnia from the wilderness of the western borders. Whether it was their superior fighting, technological advances, or sheer force, we can't say for sure. But we do know that within that year, Caspian had emerged the victor and claimed the Narnian throne for himself. The Telmarine invasion brought an end to the former line of kings, most likely of Archenland descent, and plunged the land into a dark age for 300 years, during which Narnians were first abused and oppressed, and eventually hunted and forced into hiding. One of the most significant results of the Telmarine invasion was that for the most part, the old ways and history of Narnia was lost, with only a small remnant of secret Narnians preserving the stories of the ancient times. In fact, the ancient knowledge may have well been lost for good, if not for the next important battle. Number 6, the Second Battle of Baruna. The Second Battle of Baruna, fought in the year NT 2303, marked the end of the Telmarine rule in Narnia and ushered in a new era of prosperity. After 300 years of oppression and darkness, a new hope emerged in the form of Prince Caspian, the rightful heir to the Narnian throne. With the help of the Pevensey siblings who had returned to Narnia, Caspian sought to reclaim his kingdom and restore peace and justice to the land. As the name implies, the conflict came to a head in the area previously known as the Fords of Baruna, and now simply called the Bridge of Baruna. At its onset, the battle shaped up to be a long and terrible fight, but with the help of the sudden reinforcements by the awakened trees and the unchained river god's destruction of the Baruna Bridge, the Telmarine army was pushed back to the river with no means of escape, and as a result, the battle ended quickly. Prince Caspian took his rightful place as the new king of Narnia. The Second Battle of Baruna was significant because it marked the restoration of Narnian creatures to their rightful place in the land, and it ushered in a new Narnian Renaissance period, known as the Age of Exploration. Number 7, the Battle at Stable Hill. The Battle of Stable Hill, or more commonly referred to as the Last Battle, was the final fight to ever take place in the world of Narnia, led by King Tirian, along with the help of Jill Pole and Eustace Scrubb, against a powerful united faction of Calormen soldiers, treacherous dwarves, and Narnian traitors. It took place in the year 2555 during the Calormen incursion, after Cair Paravel had fallen in an amphibious assault by the great Calormen navy. The battle is also sometimes referred to as Tirian's last stand, because even while the kingdom had fallen and defeat was undeniably imminent, Tirian rallied the last of the Narnian loyalists who fought with all their might until they were utterly decimated. In one final act of bravery and defiance, Tirian seized upon Rishta Tarkin and flung both himself and Tarkin through the dark portal of the stable door, which led to certain death at the hands of the demon god Tash. Now, it's important to understand that while it seemed that the Calormans had the final victory in the pages of Narnian history, that couldn't be farther from the truth. And that's really the most significant thing about this battle. Because in the end, Aslan's arrival to the world he created showed once and for all that no matter who claimed the victory on the battlefield, ultimately every nation, tribe, and tongue would bow to him, the true conquering king. Now, there's one last battle we haven't discussed, and it's probably the most significant fight of all throughout the entire history of Narnia. In fact, this battle spans across Narnia's history and enlisted every person who ever heard the Great Lion's call. But it wasn't a battle of stone and steel or flesh and blood, and it didn't take place on the battlefield or in the arena, because Narnia's greatest battle was the battle of the heart and mind, and that's a battle that rages on in our world today. Perhaps at a level of intensity like never before, with stakes that could not be higher, even greater than life and death. Now thankfully, the path to victory has been made clear, and it's the same path that Aslan offered to those he brought to Narnia so long ago, to all of us who have followed his call into the wardrobe. Because I am in your world, said Aslan, but there I have another name. You must learn to know me by that name. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, that's a battle worth fighting.